Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Benefits. This is a podcast exploring the flaws in the healthcare system and the people working hard to fix them. We're really excited today to cover one of the fastest growing topics for many of our viewers in exploring the world of pharmacy. It's a pain point for many people as costs continue to rise and the number of solutions out there continue to match that cost. We're joined today by two really great guests to help us sift through the noise. The first up is Eric Levin. He's the CEO and co-founder of Scripta Insights, a pharmacy navigation company. Thanks for joining us, Eric.
Great to be here.
We're also joined by the one and only Jordan Counts, Vice President of Pharmacy Services at Quantum Health. How are you doing, Jordan?
Doing well. Thanks for the kind introduction, and happy to share the space with Eric.
Yeah, excited to have both of you here for this. We figured we'd start off by kind of diving into the member experience, as that's oftentimes where we start here at Quantum Health. Let's start to set the stage for what it's like for a member going through a pharmacy journey. Starting at that prescription being filled from a big picture. What kind of decisions are they making? What's that experience like? Maybe Eric, you can kick us off with your perception of what that member journey looks like.
Yeah, happy to. I think, one of the things that surprised me when I got in this business is how many people have experiences here that aren't great, either for themselves or for a family member. You'd be at a cocktail party and say people say, "What do you do?" And you explain, they're like, "Oh," immediately. It's like being a doctor when you're like, "Oh, my elbow hurts. Can you do?" They're like, "What do we do? We don't know. We don't know how to handle this." And I went through this myself. I had two experiences since I've been in this business where I went to my doctor. He said, "Hey, I'm looking at your blood. I'm thinking I'm going to put you on this thing you never heard of and can't pronounce. What do you think?" And you go, "Okay." And then he kind of looks at his little computer and goes, "Where do you want it sent?" And you're like, "CVS is on the way home." And then you get to CVS and you show up, and we live in a world where most people have at least $1,000 deductible. When this first happened to me, we had a $5,000 deductible, and it was $432. And that's a pretty horrible experience to have, is to be standing there at CVS, finding out you owe $432, and now what, right? And so that's really, the worst, in a lot of ways, the worst of what it can be, but unfortunately, far too often what people are really experiencing out there.
No, it's so true, Eric. And again, I think you go from that place of hope when you leave the physician's office or the provider's office, thinking you've got a cure, or at least something to help you manage, a chronic, debilitating disease, only to find out that there's going to be yet another healthcare barrier or hurdle that you might have to surmount before you actually get to start that therapy and get to experience that change. So, I think you appropriately highlight some very real world experiences that, to your point, all of us can think of a time when we stood at that pharmacy counter, no matter what pharmacy counter that may be, and learned some of those hard lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, you think about too how confusing it is to understand the benefits, let alone the pharmacy side of the fence. And you get there and the pharmacist is offering you maybe discounts or something that they know about. And you're like, how does that work with my health plan? It's a pretty daunting experience for a lot of people going through that.
Yeah, it's not only, I think healthcare in general for too many people is daunting. I think most people it's daunting. Pharmacy has its own complexities, starting with just how hard it is to pronounce everything. Sounds ridiculous, but there's certain drugs I take for like high cholesterol that I think it took me 10 years to be able to actually say back to someone. It's complicated, and it's hard to deal with. And, fundamentally what's so odd about this whole experience is that we live in a country and in a world where we comparison shop for just about everything, right? Like if my toaster broke, I'm on the internet going, what toaster should I buy? What, do I have it shipped? Do I buy it? Who has it on sale? Do I want 4 slices, 2 slices? Do I want a toaster oven? Like all this, all that does is heat up bread. But when my doctor said, "I'm going to give you this and it's going to stop you from having a heart attack," we go, "Okay, like, yeah, sure, that." And in reality, I think what's so empowering and what we've built a company around, and what I think aligns so well with what Quantum's all about, being very member centric, is that there are often a lot of options out there. And just people don't realize that It is new information, strangely, but to almost everyone that there is often a different drug you could take that treats the same condition with the same, if not better, efficacy. That if you buy it at a different place, it could have a very different price, and maybe there's a coupon or discount code you could apply to it. And when you start to do those things, suddenly what you realize is that there are lots of ways to both lower costs and improve health outcomes and lower financial frustration and stress. And it's really just about, finally giving the tools to truly empower consumerism. We put a consumerism model in place for pharmacy and for all medicine today, really, for healthcare. But it's been very hard to do in pharmacy, and that's, I think, one of the biggest things we really want to change about this model is help people understand that they can make decisions, and those decisions can really impact what their cost of health is.
I think we'd also be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the difference between the toaster analogy and a prescription pharmaceutical is that you require another entity, another individual to get that pharmaceutical, and that is, your provider, your doctor. They're ultimately the individual who's going to, with your partnership, make that decision about your treatment options, which have very real cost implications for you as a patient or a member or a family member, et cetera. And so, as much as the solutions that are in the market, and again, thinking about what Scripta has purposefully designed, there's tremendous value in being able to put that same transparency and clarity to the inputs of decision making to providers who are trying to
Yeah.
care for and make real world decisions about the treatment plans for their patients.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think it really surprises people. Most people, kind of think that their doctors are aware of what they're going to pay. I recently saw a study that's 70, I think it was about 78%. I might have that off by a couple percentage points, but it's in that very upper range of doctors have no idea what that drug's going to cost their patient when they write it. So yeah, Jordan, you're absolutely right. That is a huge missing piece of this as well.
It's funny too, like there's also the experience for the member of you, Eric, I think brought up can even pronounce half the drugs, right, that we get prescribed.
Yeah.
But many of us can sing the song from the commercial we hear on TV, right? So it's like there's the added confusion of I've got my employer sponsored health plan that I'm going through. I've got my physician telling me to do something. I have the pharmacist giving me advice. And then at the same time, I'm watching TV and seeing a commercial for Ozempic. So I think Ozempic and Mounjaro are the same thing. They both help me lose weight. Maybe don't know the difference between the two. Maybe don't understand, what might be best. And I might self recommend to physicians and bring a whole nother layer of confusion to that conversation myself as a consumer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's only two countries in the Western world that allow pharmaceutical advertising: New Zealand and the United States. That's
Hmm.
it. No one in
How's it?
Europe, nowhere else in Latin America. No, right? It's a very interesting and odd part of of the way that things work here in America from a healthcare perspective, and I think adds a great deal of confusion and unfortunately, probably cost, right? So if we look at take Skyrizi, which is one of the highest spend drugs out there for most of our clients.
Hmm.
They spent about $500 million last year on advertising in the United States. And
It's
that's
crazy. Hmm.
incredible amount of exposure. By contrast, there's very few consumer products that are even close to spending $500 million. Like it's probably in Coca-Cola territory, right? To frame it, and that's just one drug. Yes, it's a lot to navigate, and that's why we think pharmacy navigation is a really important part of benefit navigation.
And to the point, in fairness for our drug manufacturers, to illustrate the complexity of this decision making process about what the right medication is for the right patient, like it is multifactorial and highly matrixed and very specific. And so to do that in a 30-second spot on television or your favorite streaming service is a near impossibility. And so to your point, it is not for lack of noble intent, maybe even as much as it is the format doesn't lend to the complexity of these decisions. So, which I think is starting to become a theme in our chat today, right? Like very complex. What's the mechanism that I can trust to help me deal with that complexity and ultimately make the right decision for my unique situation.
Well, and I don't know what our friends in New Zealand are experiencing on the employer side, but I know here in the United States, a lot of our employers are really struggling with this right now. And so, we covered the member experience, and we all know how difficult and cumbersome that is. Why don't we switch gears a little bit and talk about the employer experience? I mean, they're facing these double-digit trends. They're feeling the pressure from the top down in their leadership teams. There's all these different solutions out there. They're kind of looking into the details of the plan spin and trying to do all this analysis on their own and with the partners they have in place. What kind of influences are you guys seeing driving those plan decisions? Where do you think they're falling short? Maybe Eric, we'll start with you from your perspective.
Yeah, I'll zoom out a little bit first, if you don't mind. I think that Mark Cuban, who's become one of the most fiery people on this topic, he certainly has his stump speech down. But one of the things he's really right about is that most large companies, most self-insured employers, don't really they are really running an insurance company. And the question is, do they have the right staff, and do they have the right level of expertise to be able to do that? And so I think what's happened is we've put benefits people in a really difficult spot, right? Like we're asking them to try to run an insurance company, in this case, run a pharmacy benefits insurance company, and they're not doctors and they're not pharmacists, and there's a really complex system, as Jordan mentioned. And as you mentioned, they're getting TV advertising, their doctors coming at them, your pharma rep, all this is happening, right? So I think that first and foremost we have to understand that makes it really, really difficult. And so now, given that situation, what do we have to try to think about, or what's the pressure that's put on these benefits people to try to do a great job? And I think across the board, we don't really meet many that don't want to take great care of their members and do a great job. It's just very complicated. And so, what happens is that there's kind of, at least three layers to this, right? One is you're going to pick your PBM and you're going to negotiate your contract, and then you're going to have your plan design, and then decisions are going to be made within the confines of that, right? And so I think what you see a lot of work has gone into from consultants, from the benefits people, to negotiating the best contract that they can. Then the next thing they do is they try to put the best benefit plan in place they can to help move people to the right tier of drug, cost of drug, et cetera, right? So this is where these deductibles come in and these tier prices come in. And the idea behind it is we're going to be able to, put some guardrails in place. But then what happens is this: you have these guardrails, but within the guardrails, it gets really difficult because you have pharma coming in and buying down copays with manufacturing assistance. So suddenly your $100 copay becomes zero. So there's no skin in the game anymore for the member. You also have a situation where within your formulary, there's three options. They might have three drastically different prices. The doctors can write any three of those and still be covered by insurance, right? So I think a lot of what we talk about here is that this navigation layer it really is the last mile here. It's this last step in getting control of your spending. You've negotiated your PBM contract. You put a smart, thoughtful plan design in place. Now decisions are getting made every single day within that could raise or lower your price. So that's where the kind of decision support that navigation provides and the kind of proactive outreach navigation provides really starts to close the gap and give you the tools you need to start to control better trend.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, what do you think? Anything to add there?
Yeah, it's hard to. Eric did such a good job. It's hard to add to a lot of context to that, other than to maybe summarize, which is to say it's this series of macro decisions, but these micro decisions, there's still plenty of incremental value to be delivered back to the member and to the client. And to Eric's point, those happen on a regular basis, day in and day out. And maybe the tragic part is without a ton of thought. So if you're given a monthly medication, you're filling that 12 times. There's a good chance in 2026 it's in an auto refill program from either your PBM or your pharmacy. Again, with the best of intention to try to drive adherence, but that money comes out of your bank account, and you may not fully appreciate that ongoing cost until you're meaningfully presented with that opportunity in front of you in the right context so that you can thoughtfully practice that consumerism appropriately.
Yeah.
So it is the interesting dynamics of healthcare such that there's a lot of commoditization that occurs around healthcare, but it is again very important with very real impact to your well or your health and your wealth outcomes. And
Hmm.
so maybe pun intended there. But those are the things that I think are important for plans and the clients that we serve to be thinking about in terms of are their members on autopilot, or are they practicing the type of consumerism that the plan hoped for and intended for when it was what is designing its pharmacy benefit. And again, there will be more and more levers as we think about managing the cost formula, utilization times unit cost, for clients to be able to pull, and helping members and providers to know when to pull what lever is going to be increasingly crucial.
Yeah, Chris, I think Jordan hit on something really important. I think, there's always a lot of focus on the next fill.
Hmm.
And the reality is all of our customers, when they come to us, are spending millions, if not tens of millions a month on their drugs. And one of the biggest differences is between medical cost containment and pharmacy cost containment is one is episodic and one is ongoing. And so pattern disrupt on refills, making sure people are thinking proactively about those refills. These are things that have a huge impact on trend, but they're not talked about a lot. And it sort of goes under the radar. People are very focused on these high cost drugs, et cetera, which they should be. These are big issues, and we do deal with all that.
Hmm.
But there's a whole other part of this. So if you think about, like, I mean, there's generally, people say about 2% of the fills are about 50% of the spend. That's generally about right. That means there's 50% of the spend that isn't, right?
Hmm.
And so we all work on that 50%, that 2% that's specialty, and there's things we can do. Some are harder, some are easier. But some of the stuff in that other 50% is like no brainers. Like, these are easy switches. These are not disruptive. These aren't things that where you're gonna have to tell somebody to switch their transfusion from one medicine to another. These are really easy things. And so that's the other point that's really important for HR people to be thinking about as they think about benefit trend and spend trend. Let's attack it all.
Yeah.
We say often your trend isn't going up because you have one big hole in your boat. You have 100 holes of varying size, and when you
Hmm.
plug one, another one pops up. And so just constantly, being able to monitor that, stay on top of it, patch that hole, move on to the next one. That's what really bends trend over time.
To continue the shameless analogy of the boat with the holes in it, so you're not going to stick the same size plug in every hole,
Right.
right? So the reality is again, there's as you think about all the inputs and the matrix of the different factors that go into some of this decision making, those have to be thought through with the right level of specificity. And so um, that's what pharmacy navigation really does, is it tailors the solution to the uniqueness of the individual member's scenario.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess to that end, I first of all, I'm laughing at the fact that we went from toaster ovens to boats, but the analogies are super helpful. I mean, for the employers that are dealing with the toaster ovens and the boats, what decisions do they need to make strategically to plug the hole in the boats? And it sounds like maybe you're suggesting that's navigation, connecting the dots. Eric, specifically, like, you talked about attacking both the 50% of the high volume, the 50% of the high cost, having a strategy for both. Can you weigh in a little bit more on, specifically what you would advise the employers to do to guide members to make these better decisions?
Yeah, I think this is not going to be news to anyone. We all know that starts with good data and understanding where your spend is coming from, and sort of prioritizing and categorizing around that. And also matching it to your corporate culture and your priorities and your strategies. I mean, this is something we spend a lot of time on. Not every company is the same. They don't have the same, point of view around, what they want to get done from a benefits perspective, what they want to get done from a cost sharing perspective, nor do they have the same type of members, right? Like we literally have members that are miners. They work underground with a light on their head, and we have accounting firms, right? And so how you
Yep.
communicate to them and how you work with them can be very different. So ultimately, start with the data. What is special about our data, and we think really important is, I think benefits people are used to seeing data that says, here's your spend, here's where there's a problem, good luck.
Yep.
See what you can do with that.
Go get it.
um, our data is the opposite. So our data is going to come back and say, here's what your savings opportunity is. So if you click and drill down, it's going to be very clear what the next steps are to get that. And as Jordan points out rightly, it's going to depend a lot on the type of drug it is and other factors that are around it. But when you start with getting a good clarity around that, you then can kind of start to build a strategy that says, all right, how are we going to mix together, proactive member support, reactive member support, proactive physician engagement, proactive campaigns and population health management type work. Then you all of a sudden, now you have something that you can act on. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, that's in business, that's everything, right? You can have the best strategy in the world, but it'll all come down to execution. And the right data formatted the right way, combined with the right tools, is, I think, what almost everybody is looking for.
Sure. Jordan.
Important thing for clients as they think about like how do they develop a strategy which allows them to bend the trend is that there needs to be an acknowledgement that a pharmacy strategy is not a set it and forget it type of proposition, right? So the reality is that you're gonna have to execute against your pharmacy strategy on an ongoing basis. You're gonna need phenomenal data and great insights to be able to do that. But the other reality is that you're not going to change the plan design on a constant basis throughout any given plan year. When that pharmacy plan design is executed for those macro types of decisions, what formulary, what exclusions, what tiering, those sorts of things, those become set. But what we know about pharmacy is that change is inevitable. It's a very dynamic environment. And so having a navigation solution, which we're obviously biased towards, in the pharmacy space is going to allow you to be more aggressive in managing some of that pharmacy trend with some non-plan design solutions, right? So some of the campaigns that Eric mentioned, let's say that there's a unique market opportunity where a new biosimilar comes to market and you may not be able to reevaluate its formulary positioning or your rebate strategy until the following plan year. Well, you've got an opportunity to bring that awareness about a potentially lower price point biosimilar to the attention of the member and the provider that's treating them. So that type of dynamic solutioning within any given plan year and then over the course of your not so long term strategy in pharmacy is a crucial capability to have, I think, for a contemporary
Well,
health
and
plan.
as employers think of their pharmacy strategy and consider navigation as being a kind of critical part of it, I think there's some pretty big news that Quantum Health has recently shared that could really change how employers view and manage the strategies relating to pharmacy costs. Jordan, do you mind sharing some of the details on how this new partnership benefits everybody?
Yeah, it's my pleasure to Chris. At Quantum Health, we couldn't be more excited in partnership with Scripta to bring an enhanced pharmacy navigation solution to our suite of products. So many of the concepts, the solutions that Eric and I have been focusing on are soon going to be the reality for Quantum Health members, Quantum Health clients, as we really, again, enhance the capabilities that we have around pharmacy benefit execution, the steerage and navigation that we'll be able to do at a member and drug level. So our navigation solution is going to be built into our member experience, digital and otherwise. And it's going to be fully powered by the Scripta Insights solution, bringing their best-in-class market knowledge around the pharmacy benefit, how we deliver meaningful cost opportunities that have a real world impact, right? So as people can better afford their medications, they can be more adherent, they can ultimately achieve the types of wellness and health goals that they're after. And we just couldn't be more excited about how Eric and the Scripta team are going to power those insights that we'll be able to deliver not only to our members, but to the warriors and the care coordinators here at Quantum that serve them.
Eric, what do you think about, I mean, I know you've learned a lot about navigation recently and we're pretty familiar with our product before. How do you think the combination of Scripta and Quantum kind of supercharges that member experience?
Yeah, I mean, I say this with all seriousness. What Quantum does is what every member wants. I mean, we hear, because we typically are a standalone pharmacy navigation company, right? And so we're hearing from a lot of members their frustration, how difficult it is to deal with these issues, especially if they have chronic conditions, if they're sick. Quantum's commitment to members first and being able to really help members and knowing that ultimately doing what's right for members does drive down a lower cost and does the right thing for plans. It's a tremendous fit, and I love the product. The thing that has most surprised me as we've gotten deep into this is just how many integration points there are, how many ways that this data can be used throughout the Quantum experience for employers and employees. It's really an incredible vision that Jordan and his team, as well as the executive team there, has put together. And so, we're a mission-driven company. Our tagline is we want people to help people get the right med at the best price. Notice we don't say the best med at the best price, the right one, right? And that's where that discipline and thinking about it. Once you know what the right one is, let's make sure that it's affordable, and ultimately bringing down trend is good for the member as well. I think this is also one of the things that is a misnomer a little bit in our space is people think, bringing down trend in general for the employer, maybe, what's the impact for the employee? Well, the impact is you're going to get better benefits, right? I mean, I think every company wants to take care of its members. It just gets hard if it's expensive. And so being part of a platform that can truly change trend across medical and pharmacy for us is right on brand, right on mission. It's why we exist, and we couldn't be more thrilled to be part of it.
Chris, I have to add something because I think Eric's being a little modest when he talks about the right medication. So one of the things that really differentiated Scripta as we looked for the right pharmacy navigation partner to enhance our capabilities is the level of clinical rigor that goes into the process of selecting the right medication. And I think what became abundantly clear in our conversations as we've worked through what this solution looks like for members and for our clients is that there is a pharmacy and therapeutics committee that sits behind the recommendations that Scripta makes. It's filled with pharmacists and physicians who understand this space and well beyond. A vast number of specialties and subspecialties represented with a very, again, clinically rigorous approach to recommending what is the right medication. And that's, as again, we've sort of been thematically demonstrating here, that is a part of the multifactorial process of choosing the right medication. Yes, the data is important. Yes, where the decimal hits is important. But more important than any of those things, clinically, it has to be the right medication to suggest as an alternative. So with all due respect, Eric, you're being a bit modest when you talk about the right. Want to highlight the strength that Scripta has in that particular area. And it was one of the major deciding factors when we thought about who aligns best with our organization and the type of experience that we want to be delivering to our members.
Appreciate that.
Well, and maybe Jordan, you could elaborate for our listeners, how the role of a navigator can help with this partnership, specifically with Quantum Health and your experience with their care coordinators. What do they do for members? How does having Scripta make them more effective? Like a little bit of the specifics I think might be helpful.
Yeah, so kindred spirits and navigation, different focuses, but those are coming together here as one as we think about how Scripta will power Quantum Health's new pharmacy navigation capabilities. But in addition to all we've discussed about giving the client insights and them seeing the reporting and not only where their challenges may be, but what solutions would be recommended for their membership, and certainly supporting members and providers as they make those routine decisions when accessing pharmacy benefits. But yeah, unique to Quantum Health is the role of the care coordinator, the warrior, as we call them around here. Those folks on the front line when you're having a really bad day, or you're that individual we talked about at the beginning, right? That member at the pharmacy who just heard that your medication this month is going to be $400. Well, the answer to that dilemma in our world is to pick up the phone and call your Quantum Health care coordinator. So those conversations are happening today, and where we're so excited about this opportunity is that in addition to the members and the providers, those same care coordinators are going to get the information that allows them to help hold the hand of these members and these families as they go through these complex healthcare journeys to help them make their medications more affordable. So we acknowledge that there's a wide range of individuals who are using healthcare and pharmacy benefits across this country. Those who are perfectly adept at logging into an app or getting online and looking at a portal and analyzing the medication specific opportunities that are in front of them. And then there are those that have less comfort in doing so. And so in that vein, arming those care coordinators and those warriors with that information will allow us on those inbound calls, which may be related to that pharmacy visit or may be related to something as simple as I need to replace my ID card. We'll have those opportunities in front of us so that we can appropriately engage those individuals and their providers as necessary to help them understand that opportunity that is in front of them, give them the confidence to be able to go back to their provider and have that conversation. I think that's one of the things that's really underappreciated in this country is how difficult it is for some of the utilizers of healthcare in this country to confidently engage their provider for medications that could be more affordable to them because there's such trust we put in providers. But those are very important conversations, and at Quantum Health, again, we're uniquely positioned with the insights powered by Scripta to be able to make members more confident in those conversations.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to hear too. Like two mission-driven organizations, culturally aligned, both interested in completing the entirety of the members' healthcare journey. It's a really exciting partnership, and so excited for our members and our employers to be able to take advantage of it. I know we're going to spend a lot more time talking about that at Quantum Health here in the near future and throughout the rest of the year, but I'd like to switch gears a little bit and play a quick game of Mythbusters with you two. In this section, I'll speak up. I'll call out one of you and provide a myth or a fact and ask you two to weigh in on your perspective on it. So
before we get started, Chris, I have to know, are the prizes or is this for...
We'll follow up with you offline about the prizes, Jordan. The first myth goes to you, Eric. The PBM reform that's in the news right now will solve most of the problems around the rising pharmacy costs.
Wouldn't that be nice? That would be great. I think for all of us, we would love to think that that's the case. I will say there's a lot of good things happening. There's been more change in the last 12 months than probably in the last 20 years. But at the end of the day, if we go back earlier to our conversation and take a look, I think that you're going to have two things happen. One is fundamentally the system isn't changing, right? So you're still going to have a situation where decisions are being made every day within a set of guardrails and they need to be optimized. The other one, which is important, is for employers, there's going to be a lot of confusion, right? So you're going to have a lot of member disruption, member confusion where, people are saying, hey, the president told me my costs are going down. Why haven't my costs gone down? And why aren't we using Trump RX? And what about this? And what about that? We've built a system that incorporates all of that so that we can really help guide members and help take that pressure off the benefits people when those questions do come in. Fundamentally, I wouldn't expect to see much change actually in terms of your actual trend on a day-to-day basis, despite the fact that some good things are happening, and it just makes what we do even more important. Chaos requires navigation more than ever.
Yeah. Well, myth number one, busted. Myth number two, Jordan, drug advertising helps members make more informed decisions about their medication.
Yeah, I would have to would agree with this as a myth, and we kind of beat this one up earlier, but just to double click on it, more. I'm always a believer in more information is great, but more information needs to go to its natural endpoint, which is to say that having these new amazing therapies that are at our disposal to treat members is overall a positive thing. Like, we need more tools in the toolbox. But again, if those things become major trend busters as it relates to an employer trying to manage healthcare costs and struggling with the concept of, do these trends year over year cause me to continually raise my healthcare premiums, right? That's not a situation we want. If a member shows up to the pharmacy and the bill for the brand new fanciest commercial driven specialty drug is $400 or $500, those are incredibly impactful dollar amounts. And so the overall drug pipeline is a positive thing, because it means that we're going to have more therapeutic options to treat some of these really challenging conditions. But it's a small piece of an overall puzzle that has to be pondered. And again, I think what Eric and I are suggesting is that for any benefits team or anybody running a health plan, that's a very tall ask. And so these individuals are going to be looking towards partners who can help them distill the complexity of these things, including some of the latest and greatest commercial worthy therapeutics that are available to us.
Finally, one more for you, Eric. Everyone in the pharmacy ecosystem is working toward the same goal, helping members to get the best medication at the best cost.
Oh, again, wouldn't that be nice? That's going to be my answer to all this. You know what? The truth is, there's a lot of bashing and sort of name calling and positioning people as the good guy or the bad guy, and I don't think that that's real. I think everybody does want to do the right thing. Most people are good and want people to be healthy, and they got in this business to help people. The reality is, though, that these are for-profit organizations, and so especially if they're public, their fiduciary duty is not to patients. Their fiduciary duty is to their shareholders. And so, really, if you look at the supply chain, from beginning to end, it's the drug manufacturers need to sell a lot of drugs. Of course, they want to help people, but they need to make a profit. And then the PBMs, same, right? They want to help lower the cost for their employer customers, but they really work for the employer, not the member. And they do have to make a profit because they're public companies. And then you ultimately get to doctors. They want to do the right thing, but most of them are also for profit and have very limited time with patients and a lot of pressure that's going on with them. Very hard for them to keep up with prices and everything they have to do. So ultimately, the member is the one who has the most alignment. They want to be healthy and they don't want to be broke, right? And so it's really not a matter of good guys, bad guys, et cetera. It's just a matter of the way the system works in America. It's a capitalist system. We are not all aligned 100%. And so each of us has to, at our stage in that supply chain, in that value ecosystem, do the best we can to negotiate and make good decisions. And I think that's where we help.
Yeah, quickly tack on. I think there's definitely some truth in that statement. So it may not be an entirely myth from a motivation standpoint, but I think I would just double down, concisely here, that there are a lot of organic forces and market economics that play into this pharmacy space, that ultimately do create some of the misalignment of incentives that we see here.
Well, I appreciate both of you spending so much time with us today. Really grateful for your insight. I think as we close up today, I would love it if I could, turn it over to both of you to share with us a few clear steps that you think employers should be keeping in mind as they revise their pharmacy strategy, and then maybe some additional questions that they should be asking as they go through that. Jordan, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, fair. I just want to, again, sort of double click on something that I shared earlier. I think having a pharmacy strategy that is not a once a year or a couple times a year proposition is an extremely good use of time and energy. To being able to intentionally and thoughtfully diversify your pharmacy benefit structure, your plan design, et cetera, which is not to end up with a cornucopia of solutions which which naturally could lead itself to this sort of disintermediated provider and member experience. But to again meaningfully think about your plan design, but then maintain the flexibility through a solution like pharmacy navigation, such that you can react to trends you see in that plan year, is what I would have folks really focus on. And then I think, to our last point, making sure that you've got trusted, transparent partners who can demonstrate the return on investment of the solutions that you're investing in is always sage advice.
Eric, what's your take?
Yeah, I love the way you wrap that up. I agree. I think it's relatively straightforward at the highest level. Make sure you have your data. Work with someone you trust who has deep clinical understanding and market knowledge to help you figure out what the opportunity is in that data, and make sure that you have a partner that then can turn those insights into actions and actually create savings and better member experiences, healthier members, and bend the trend in the right direction.
Well, again, I can't thank both of you enough for making the time to join us today and your insight as we kind of unpacked the world of pharmacy and what the member and client experience is as they try to unpack it themselves. For the listeners, really appreciate you as well. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to like and subscribe. We'll be diving into key healthcare topics every episode and making sure that we continue that through the springtime here. You can also share this episode with friends and follow on LinkedIn, all of our other social media platforms. And then finally, head to quantum-health.com and check out our schedule of upcoming webinars. There's some really good content like the conversations that we discovered here today. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.